Hello, this is Jonathan, Adult Services Librarian at Shaker Heights Public Library. Today on Shaker Presents, I thought I'd share with you my recipe and process for making a snack my family loves. This is called Spanakopita or Spanakotiropita. People think it's daunting, but I think you'll find that it's pretty easy to do. Here are the ingredients you will need for my particular recipe. Luckily, we live in a region where you can find most of this stuff at our local grocery store. I used too much butter for this episode, so next time I make this, I will use probably less than a whole stick. We'll need 2 packets of frozen chopped spinach, which has been thawed, a bunch of green onion, a roll of PHYLLO. The packet comes in with 2 rolls, but you'll only use one of those rolls, which has about 20 sheets. You may have a few sheets left over after this recipe is finished. You'll also need 1 cup of crumbled feta, a half a cup of casseri or other plain white cheese, a little bit of butter, not as much as I used, hopefully. You'll need an egg, about a tablespoon of olive oil. I use dill to flavor my recipe, and salt and pepper. Some other things you will need are pretty basic kitchen utensils that you'll find in most places. A 9 by 13 inch baking dish, a skillet, a saucepan, a bowl, cutting board, knife, a brush for the butter, a grater for the cheese, a spatula, and I also use a salad spinner, which you will see why in a moment. The first thing we do is we get as much moisture out of the spinach as possible. I do this with the salad spinner first, and then I have to usually squeeze out the remaining juices. Next, I cut up the onion, clean it, chop it up into small bits. Try to get it as small as possible without cutting yourself. And then you're going to want to heat your oil in the skillet and add your onions when that's nice and hot. The purpose here is just to soften the onion and give it a little flavor. I usually add the dill at this point, as much as you want or as little, and some salt and some pepper. Once that has sauteed for a little while without becoming too brown, I add the spinach, crumbling those balls up and sprinkling it in with the onion and flavorings. Again, the whole purpose here is to get as much moisture out of the mixture as possible. We don't want to cook it or brown it. We just want the dryness. You'll take that off the heat for maybe about a half an hour and wait for it to cool down. And meanwhile, you can take a little break. Feel free to peruse our Shaker Heights Public Library website, where you can find lots of interesting book ideas, recipes. Even now in our quarantine state, you can go online and find some of these things which you can read as an ebook or even listen to as audiobooks. There's also a lovely tool we have for learning languages called Transparent Language, which you can find at the link below Okay, so you've waited about a half an hour, done your little walk or language exercise, and we're ready to get on with the fun stuff. First, you're going to want to make sure your mixture is ready. Add your egg and cheese to the spinach and onion mix and mix that up really good. Set that aside for now and start melting your butter. Again, you'll note that I used way too much butter here. When the butter is melted, make sure you've preheated your oven to about 375. This might take a while, usually long enough for you to assemble the pie and have it ready to go when your oven is ready to go. Open up your phyllo, save the plastic that it comes in because you might need that a little bit later. Phyllo tends to dry out quickly, and so I usually have the plastic ready to go back over it along with a towel or something with a little moisture in it to keep that phyllo nice and malleable. So first thing you're going to do is carefully take off a piece of phyllo after you've, of course, greased your pan. Lay down the first sheet and just dab a little butter on the first, and honestly several sheets. You're going to use about 8 to 10 sheets of phyllo for the base. Sprinkling a little bit of butter in between each sheet to keep them separate and not doughy. You're going to have to work a little fast here. Like I said, the phyllo tends to dry out, but you'll get better at it over time. Don't get frustrated. You're going to want to layer about 8 to 10 sheets of phyllo, spreading the butter as you go. And when that's done, you're going to want to spread your mixture in this middle part as evenly as possible. Again, working quickly. Once that's down, you can start to layer your phyllo again. I usually use a few fewer sheets of phyllo on the top than I do the bottom, though some recipes might differ. About 8 sheets on top. So again, layering sheet of phyllo, a little bit of butter, another sheet of phyllo, and so it goes. Once you've finished with all that, you're going to want to take your sharp knife and cut your pie into the shape that you want it for the final result. If you wait to cut after it comes out of the oven, you risk crumbling it up a little too much. Sometimes it's much more difficult to cut. And so here's where you want to do that. I usually use squares, but of course you can cut triangles or diagonals or rhomboids, whatever you like. Also at this time, I spread the remaining butter over the top of the pie, letting it soak in. And again, you can see I have way too much butter there. Okay, then you pop it in the oven, middle rack about 50 minutes if you were working at 375. You can also, of course, put it at 350 and leave it in for about 60 minutes. It's up to you, however your oven works. And once you pop it out, be careful because people will want to eat it right away and they might burn their tongues. So make sure you let it cool off first. Takes this time to make a little tea, finish up your Greek lesson, where you will learn the nice phrase kali orexi, which means essentially good appetite or bon appetit. And now you are able to share this delicious madness with your friends and family. You can find other titles at our website in our catalog. We have several of them on hand, or we can get them for you. A few of these are even available on Hoopla or Overdrive as ebooks. And if you wouldn't mind clicking the link at the bottom to show me how well we did with this presentation, that would be awesome. Thank you very much for coming today.